Are you ready for an open discussion with the best of the best and the best of what's next? Welcome to the Tony DUrso Show. Join in on a great conversation today with some of the world's great influencers as they showcase great advice and techniques that made them the game changers they are today. Now, here's Tony DUrso.
Welcome and thanks for joining in with us. Today we're going to give you some pointers on getting massive publicity and benefiting from kindness. Now, as you know from the ending of my shows every week when I talk about sow good seeds and do good deeds, well, it comes back to you. And when I give freely without any thought of return. And you know, my show keeps growing. Is there any correlation? We're going to talk about today, can we profit from kindness with Jill Lublin? Now, that title doesn't quite say at all what this is about. This is really, let's call it a higher level learning experience. So please have patience and listen carefully. And while we're at it, this is all about helping you and your friends turn your vision into reality. We want to help you get very successful at growing your business to a high level. And we're going to help turn you into an elite entrepreneur. Well, meet Jill Lublin. She's a master publicity strategist and consultant with over 200 speaking engagements each year. She's a 4-time best-selling author. She teaches publicity, networking, kindness, and influence marketing. All the good stuff. I think that says enough. Let's get into it and learn. Hi, Jill. Welcome to the Tony DUrso Show.
Oh, thank you, Tony. It's a delight to be here.
Jill, I've been waiting for this interview for quite some time, and I'm looking forward to finding out more about, can we profit from kindness? I've kind of mentioned that I see it, but I really want to explore it thoroughly and go into all the nuances. But perhaps just before we do that, Jill, can we start here? Tell us, what's your backstory?
Well, the backstory relates to this particular book, The Profit of Kindness. It's interesting. I didn't expect to write another book, Tony. In fact, the 3rd edition of Guerrilla Publicity had just come out. It's so exciting. And then one day I'm taking my 85-year-old friend, she was 85 then, on an outing. I've been friends with her for over 30 years and have helped her in her aging journey, all kinds of stuff, what's involved with that. And I remember her looking at me and she said, Jill, I wish we had a new currency. Wouldn't it be great if we had the kindness currency, the currency of kindness? And, people like you are so kind, you get rewarded in many ways. And one of those moments when somebody says something to you and it's ding, 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 that was that moment. And I realized the currency of kindness would be a really good book. And I appropriately, went to my publishers who've published my other books. And I said, what do you think of this idea? And, well, they liked it. And that's really how this book got started. One comment from a wonderful woman I call my friend.
I love that story. Now, you run a business for many, many years, for decades, on generating massive publicity for your clients. How did that vision evolve that got you into that business?
So that was one of those, I was in law school and I frankly hated law school, which surprised the heck out of me because I wanted to be an attorney. I thought that was going to be the way that I could help people. Be an attorney, understand the law, work the system, right? And I thought, well, that'd be really good. Plus, honestly, nobody in my family had even gone to college. So I must admit there was a part of me that wanted to not only, excel and succeed, but do something that would, as I saw it, make a difference. And then I got to law school. And I actually got sick 5 times that year. My first year of law school, not real good for a first-year student, and all the studying and pressure of law school that there was. I was in one of the top 10 law schools. So I have to say, I dropped out of law school, much to my father's chagrin. He's like, what are you going to do? I said, well, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And he said, what is it and how do you spell it? Well, I can tell you that I'm still, I'm still figuring out what the entrepreneur journey is, but I do know how to spell it now. I will tell you that it was one of those moments, I felt like a failure dropping out of law school. I hated it, which surprised me. It was very cerebral, and I'm very imaginative and intuitive and creative, all of which makes me great in publicity, not so good in law school. So it's one of these things I look back on and I'm so glad it happened, but it was painful in the moment. However, here's what's interesting. During law school, I thought I have got to do something that's going to keep me engaged and interested. So I started working for one of the biggest music business attorneys in San Francisco. I mean, I'm talking the Grateful Dead and Journey and Santana and Huey Lewis and the News and all of these wonderful rock and roll bands, mostly rock and roll. And working for that attorney is actually what got me into my next career, which is the music business. And I ended up in the music business for 5 years, doing promotion and publicity, and actually discovered my talent, right? And I ended up at 4 independent record labels. And I kind of find it a funny thing that now everything's kind of switched back, records are hot again. And, there's waves, right, of activity. And I did a lot in the music business, mostly in promotion and publicity, and ran the Rock and Roll Museum in San Francisco and did some things in artist management. And I was lucky, because I discovered what I did love, which is promotion and publicity.
Jill, you got into this, you were the attorney in law school, then you went into music, and then from there you realized your talent in publicity. But you could do anything in the world. Why do you do it? What's your purpose on that?
I have found that I'm very good at messages. I love going underneath the message. People tell you something and that's nice, but what's underneath that, right? And I'm actually good at pulling forth messages, and consider myself a messenger of messengers. And that has been my mission, newly, to be honest, my gift I'm grateful for, and the opportunity to serve. And then it just kind of evolved itself into a PR agency. And then when I got tapped on the shoulders, I like to call it, to write guerrilla publicity with J. Conrad Levinson, that was sort of a next phase, and closed down my PR firm and said, I want to create a way where entrepreneurs and small business owners can have access to high-level PR strategies that most people never have. And that's where that next piece came in.
Absolutely amazing. You are, I think, the 5th person, one of 5 that I've interviewed that studied under J. Conrad Levinson, the founder of Guerrilla Marketing. Just love every guest that has been mentored by him. Just amazing in what you know in that field of publicity and so forth. We're talking about, can we profit from kindness, with Jill Lublin, and you can find her at jilllublin.com. That's JILLUBLIN.com. Jill, let's get into your vision path here. We're entrepreneurs, we're business owners, we love marketing, publicity, public relations, but let's start at the basic here. Can you tell us what really is public relations?
Well, it begins with getting yourself out there to create prospects, clients, trust, visibility, credibility. Public relations is, I'll call it a bigger term. Think of it like there's a marketing tree, right? Because it is part of marketing. There's a marketing tree, and one branch is advertising and one branch is publicity. And publicity is unpaid. With advertising, you can pay for it, right? You can control it. With publicity, which is so powerful, is the media features you, interviews you, you get to be the star, and then the believability factor and trust factor goes way, way up, because you can be seen, be heard, and get paid. And that's the power of what publicity does, is gives you that kind of recognition factor that supports you in putting your message out there. That's a big key in all of this.
Okay, now I'm thinking with this, here I am, the entrepreneur, like so many of us in the audience, and I'm pitching myself, and there's so many things that we can say, but let me ask you this, you're the expert. What do we need to know to create a really good media script?
So I have a formula, and it's super easy. I teach it in all my publicity courses. We actually do it there, but I'm going to give it to your listeners and viewers right now. And it's a super simple formula. But you know when you watch a ballerina dance and it seems so beautiful and so simple, and what you don't see is her, 6-hour rehearsal days, 8-hour rehearsal days, years and years of training, right? And that's what good experts do, is they make things simple so that you can do them. And I'm going to do that with you right now. And that is give you a simple formula that I've devised over many years and decades of experience. So what you'll do is you fill in this blank. Okay. It's the problem today is, and then answer that question, like, what is the problem out there? I didn't actually ask all of you, and I want you to really hear this. I didn't say, what do you do? I said, what's the problem out there in the marketplace, right? So in my case, I might say, the problem today is 4 out of 5 businesses will go out of business because you have no clue how to create publicity without spending a fortune. That would be my simple problem. The other thing I want all of you to get used to is stating things simply. Stating things simply. And what that means is 5-year-old language, careful of the big questions, don't take a long time. Listen, most media interviews are 5 minutes. When I was interviewed on 7 Fox News interviews, 7 Fox TV news interviews for The Profit of Kindness, let me share with you that I averaged them 4 minutes and 20 seconds, okay, out of 7 of them. So media goes fast. You have to be prepared. You have to, shall we say, give your answers in simple, easy, quick ways that people can grasp and hang on to and remember, which is sound bites. So once you deliver the problem today, the other side of that is then I want you to give people real solutions. What are 3 things they can do? Keep it simple, keep it in present language, and tell people what they can do. That, my friends, will make all the difference.
I'm thinking with that, and here I am, I'm writing this, I'm pitching myself, I'm looking to get on interviews. And some of us think maybe early on that we need this, I'm a super person, I do this ooh, all this glitz about me. Do we really need this? What's it all about? And I guess just tell us, I guess that's it, to be simple. What's the factor all about?
The factor. First of all, I love the factor. It's really about creating a message that gets people paying attention. So, we all, Tony, have parts of us that are interesting, that are dynamic, that are unusual, perhaps. And in most of those cases, with a few exceptions, you want to be able to use that. This is another way to get in media. There's kind of the straight, predictable, and relatively fast-forward way of getting in media, which is using your expertise and what you know. And then there's the other direction, which is your factor. That's where you can use the parts about you that are unique, or your ethnicity, or your religion. I have my African-American clients use Black media. My Christian clients use Christian media. Women clients use International Women's Day, and so on and so forth. So what's super great about this is you can use all parts of who you are, and it makes such a major difference for getting out there.
Okay, I'm thinking with this, and now let me tie in what we're talking about on this show. profiting from kindness. So let's ask it point blank, simple question. How does kindness play into all of this?
Well, interestingly enough, and I have to tell you, I looked at all my books one day and I wrote a book on kindness because all of them are business books, right? Guess what? The Profit of Kindness is a business book, and it is about how does one profit from kindness. Now, you never be kind to create profit. Let me just say that straight. However, and listen, I did the research. I had writers help me do research. Kind companies get more publicity, good publicity, by the way. And if you notice, and especially in the market in these past few years, like Honda, the car company, was doing a whole campaign around kindness. One of our big healthcare companies in the Bay Area was doing a whole bus campaign, advertising campaign on human kindness. The word is showing up a lot of places in the lexicon, which I think is really interesting. And that's when you really know, like happiness was a big phenomenon a couple of years ago. Everybody's using the word happiness. Well, guess what? They're using the word kindness now, much more so. And I keep noticing it and have seen it very steadily. So that's how companies become more profitable, because they are kind, because they create cultures of kindness. Tony, I was in Costa Rica on holiday over Thanksgiving, and here's what's interesting. I remember I was at this one hotel and I asked a question if I could get something specific, and the waiter said to me, at this hotel, everything's possible. And I have to tell you, that felt so good to me. And I thought about how can I use that in my business? In my business, everything is possible. Like, imagine this, if all the businesses that you use, your utility companies, the shops where you shop, the big buy stores, imagine if they started using all things are possible here. It's like, wow, that just opened up for me a whole world of possibility. And it made me happy. It just made me happy. And I remember I looked at my husband, I'm like, isn't that super cool? Like, everything's possible here. Like, I didn't ask for extreme things, but the point is he made everything seem possible. And that whole attitude, let me just tell you, has me coming back, recommending this hotel. I mean, everything I can do. Now, is that good business for them? You bet it is. Of course it is.
I like that, and I'm just looking at the factor of kindness and how that can play into that hotel there. That's a very kind gesture, saying, hey, you can pretty much do just about anything here. Kind of makes it open, because usually when you go into a place of business, there's rules. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. All these no's just kind of put up little walls. But here, that just opens up the whole thing. And again, here we are, business people, entrepreneurs, and we're going, well, what kindness do I need? How do I do it? Do I put on free luncheons for the kids at school now and then, or pay for their soccer team and get some press? Kind of, let's get into some of the nuts and bolts, if you shall, on kindness.
Absolutely. Well, in the Profit of Kindness, I have what I call return on kindness principles, or ROCKS. That's the acronym, ROK, rocks of kindness. So let me give you a few. We have 7 of them, to be exact. And like one is patience. If you are more patient as a company, as a business person in particular, I'm sure, listen, most entrepreneurs, and I'm including me in that, are not necessarily known for our patience, right? I mean, we get stuff done. We operate on our own little time frames, and patience is not only a virtue, but a return on kindness principle. Because what happens is, as you're that, what it does is engender it in the other person. Of course, when I'm writing the chapter on patience for the Profit of Kindness, what happened? I had to call the utility company. I was put on hold for an hour. Now, I'm sure this has happened to all of us, right? You get put on hold or your plane is late. or something. And then my favorite part is when they come back on, or, the plane, the pilot comes back on and they thank you for your patience. Now, Tony, I don't know about you, but something goes through my mind that says, who said I was patient?
I was literally thinking the same thing.
That's what I'm talking about. Now, that's a fun thing, but let me just say, it's not typically the pilot's fault. It wasn't certainly the woman who came back on from the utilities company. It wasn't her fault. But, I've been waiting an hour. I'm not feeling patient. Now, I can blast her. That doesn't help, does it? Certainly doesn't help her, maybe me a little bit, but not much. And so I think patience, if we can keep in the practice of it, and it is a practice. I have somebody who read my book who sent me a thank you note saying they were standing in line, feeling very impatient, remembering the part about patience. And so they just turned to the person behind them and started talking and created a client relationship. That never would have happened had they not been standing in line and then, frankly, being patient and then being nice, being kind, turning to the person, engaging in conversation.
I like that. And while you were saying that, I was thinking of several times that happened. And during that moment of waiting for the other business entity, whatever, there's grumbling, people complain, start saying, this is ridiculous, don't stand for it. And as soon as someone nice with a nice smile comes out, we're so sorry we're late, everything's good, the doors are open, thank you for your kindness. All of a sudden, it changes the whole attitude of everyone. Whereas 5 minutes ago, they were just grumbling, they wanted to get on their throats. And now they're all like, kumbaya. It's amazing how that just diffuses things.
That's right. That's the point, isn't it? And so with that, I think it's really key that we look to see how can you be more kind in simple ways, right? So patience is one of them. Flexibility is another. I think in today's times, you have to be more flexible than ever. And what that looks like is like, what can you do that is simple and easy? Yes. It could be just somebody says, can we move our appointment for a half an hour, right? Or just being willing to be, especially these days, I don't know about you, but I have found people need to reschedule often. There's just stuff going on that seems like it wasn't as big before the pandemic, I'll call it. That's just what I've noticed. So I would encourage flexibility as a strategy, as a kindness rock that will support you. And, somebody reminded me about the saying, blessed are the flexible, for they shall not be broken, right? Because think about it, in nature, everything is flexible. Trees and bushes, right? Everything is flexible. So it's important that we be flexible too. And flexible spines, you age better, just saying.
It is so true. And I'm not going to mention any names. I don't. It's one of my things. I don't mention names. But I will say years back, there was a very well-known figure, can I say it in such general terms, that had an issue with people that were had like a catastrophe in the area. And this person was well known and gave it the usual response, didn't adjust to this catastrophe, didn't recognize the seriousness of what had just happened in this area. And the backflash was great, but I think it was a matter of recognizing something is going on and then being flexible about it and not going to the usual routine. I don't know everything that went on, so I can't fault this person, but I saw it. I was like, when something happens, you've got to really take a good hard look at it. And as you say, be flexible. Otherwise, it can have a serious recoil.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's, again, these are skills that you practice. These are skills that you get better at. I'm not saying, you're immediately patient, you're immediately flexible, but, certainly the practice of it and learning to just say yes. Yes, I can accommodate you. Yes, we'll make something else work. I mean, I don't know about you. When I'm not feeling well, I am not my best for my clients. I don't want to be a publicity consultant not feeling my best. And I've just noticed if I'm just straight and honest with people, hey, listen, I am not feeling great today, and I want to be my best for you. Are you okay with reschedule? Everybody, of course, has said yes, of course, feel better. And anybody who hasn't, I really don't want to work with, because to be honest, they're not kind. And, life as we know it has changed significantly. And I think we've all got to be willing to change with it. And so in kindness, flexibility is key, which leads me to another key, which is compassion. And it relates to flexibility, relates to all of them, right? But, I remember a publicity client saying to me that she just got diagnosed with cancer. Could she put off her consulting program? I mean, what are you going to say to that? Of course you can do that, right? And let me just share with you, my opening story for the Profit of Kindness begins with my coach, who, did an amazingly kind thing for me, because one stormy night in Canada while I was speaking, I actually fell and fractured both ankles in multiple places. Can you believe it? Both of them. Ow. And I was actually not only not able to walk, I mean, I was in a wheelchair for close to 6 months. I certainly couldn't have my career like I had it before. I certainly was in terrible pain, especially the first 2 months. And, when you're in pain, it's very hard to, shall I say, solidly communicate and, to be really present for my clients. And of course, everything had to shift and change, and schedules needed to change. And one thing that needed to change for me was I needed to cancel coaches, because I felt like I couldn't afford them anymore. I mean, my whole business was kind of burst through, right? And I called up my coach, and now we had been working together for quite a while. And I said, Mark, I adore you and love you, and this is what happened. And the truth is, I can't afford to keep my coaching sessions right now. And you know what he said? Well, Jill, I think we need to get you back on your feet. And I'm going to be working with you until you can, and we'll work out a payment schedule. And do you know what, Tony? He never even charged me for those months we were working together, where I was still, in a coaching relationship with him, talking through, sometimes just crying, just having somebody that I could cry with safely. And then he'd work me through that, right? And okay, what's one thing we can do next, kind of thing. Well, let me share with you, he opens up my stories of the Profit of Kindness is somebody so kind in business. And this is why he's successful to this day. He's been president of national organizations. He speaks for major banks. Because he's a good guy. And it kind of comes back down to that, doesn't it? Like, don't you often say about people, well, I like them. And that's why many times you do business with them. Wouldn't you say that's true?
Absolutely. What a great story. I absolutely love it. Great act of kindness. Amazing. Can you share with us another one? But I did want to ask you a couple of publicity type PR questions, which are very similar but a little different. But I wanted to check, because you said you had several points on kindness to go over. Did you have another one that you wanted to
Well,
talk
I actually, well, thank you. I think 3 is really good. You got to read the book for the rest. But
that's totally okay. That's totally okay, because you are a publicity expert of many decades, as I mentioned in the intro. And this question is similar to the other question with the ooh-ah factor. Maybe it's the same thing, but I just wanted to make sure, because in looking through your material, a lot of material, and I'm not an expert on you, you talk about using everything you got, and that hit a chord with me. And I go, oh, I got to ask Jill this question. So tell us about using everything you got.
Well, you told me you're Italian, right? So I'd be looking at Italian newsletters and media oriented toward the Italian market, and let's use some of that just for fun. I mean, that's only the place we'd start. So I always look at what's the obvious. Like one of my clients in my publicity course, I look across the Zoom room and I'm like, "What ethnicity are you?" She says, "I'm Filipino." I said, "Great. How would you feel about going out? I know you came in here to grow your digital marketing agency," which is what she was promoting, right? "But how would you feel about going out with hashtag Stop Asian Hate?" And that would be a very interesting story. And she said, "Of course, I'll do whatever it takes," right? Great attitude. Well, guess what? By going out with hashtag Stop Asian Hate, she got featured in a major Filipino business publication as one of the top 30 under 30 businesses. She was 28 at the time. Now, we didn't even capitalize on the 28-year-old part. We capitalized on the Filipino part. That's use everything you've got. And I'm going to tell you something. That story of being, 30 under 30, not only got her even more publicity, it got her on Les Brown's stages. She'd wanted to speak for Les Brown for years. That was one of her big dreams. Guess what happened? Because she got featured, because of publicity, he stood up and paid more attention to her. She got actually 2 speaking engagements that week. She got I think it was 37% increase in her web visits that week. And crowning glory, she got 12 prospects coming right in, and 7 of them became clients within a week. Okay, so that leaves 5 more working in, and obviously the ongoing visibility. The other thing is she always, for a lifetime, can say, "I've been featured as one of the top 30 businesses under 30. So the braggability factor, the credibility factor, the what I like to call the 3 M's of publicity that helps you to monetize, to multiply, and to magnetize. That's what publicity does. And her ooh-ah factor, using everything she's got, is a great example of that.
I love that story. One last thought-provoking publicity, public relation type question. We can advertise that costs hard cash to buy a click, buy a lead, buy a whatever, buy a sale, or we can promote, we can get publicity. What can you say? Can you comment on the return on investment on publicity?
Absolutely. Well, yes, you can actually spend a lot of money on advertising. And, it's okay. I mean, I'm not opposed to advertising because you can control it. But what I love about publicity is, come on, don't you believe more so an article you read about somebody, or you just saw them on TV, or you heard them on the Tony DUrso show, right? It's on podcasts. There's a believability factor and an immediate credibility that gets attached to publicity. In other words, it's not an ad. You haven't bought it. And that is powerful. So I'm a big believer, and I've seen, and I can tell you story after story, a woman selling 42 books in a 15-minute podcast, right? I mean, where else can you sell that quickly? Phones ringing as soon as somebody gets featured in a magazine or a newspaper. And I've seen it, and I've heard these stories of tickets selling out and products selling out, that kind of good stuff. So what I'm suggesting is that publicity is free. It's simple. It's the powerful, let me call it, building process that supports others to know not only that you exist, but to very consciously look at you in a really different way, because your credibility factor has gone way up. It's like, I call it the "I've heard of you somewhere" syndrome. I've seen you somewhere on TV, on radio, heard you on a podcast, saw you in a blog, whatever it is, you've been seen somewhere. And that, my friends, is going to make all the difference.
And that's something you can't easily pay for, to get that type of credibility. So I love it.
Well, actually, Tony, while you're talking about that, let me just tell you
Please.
that in the PR world, we actually measure how much. Let's say you get a paragraph in a local newspaper, and how much would that have cost you? So one of my clients got a one-page article, which would have cost $50,000 if she had taken out ad spend on it. $50,000 handed to you. That's the power of publicity. And I can guarantee you that most of the publicity you would get would be far more, you couldn't pay for it. Let me just say that. Far more expensive if you did pay for it. And if you're not Coca-Cola with billion-dollar, budgets, publicity is the way to go because it's free.
And Jill, you have a free publicity crash course to kind of take people through the basics. As I understand it, if we go to your site, jilllublin.com, we can actually get that class.
Yes, I have a free publicity masterclass right with me, live, interactive. Please, when you click on the free gift, it is part of the free gift. So let's see you there.
So let's do it. Thank you so much. Well, once again, we talked about Can We Profit from Kindness with Jill Lublin. And again, you can find her at jilllublin.com and you can get a hold of that masterclass. Jill, thank you so much for sharing. It was fast. It was wonderful. It was packed with information. I'm going to listen to this again as well. I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Tony, for having me. Always great to be here with you.
Hey, thanks for hanging out with me while I featured an elite entrepreneur who took her vision to reality. We discussed Can We Profit from Kindness with Jill Lublin. We talked about a number of things starting at the basic, like what really is public relations. And we talked about pitching ourselves and what do we need to know about creating a great media script. We talked about that ooh-ah factor. I love that one. And we went over several principles on kindness and how that plays into it. We talked about putting everything we got into it and how to do that. And we talked about the return of investment on publicity. I loved it. So please tell me, what did we talk about that resonated with you? I'd love to hear from you. And please remember supporting the show with a nice review on Apple Podcasts. You can access Apple Podcasts from any web or mobile device. Please try and leave a kind review. I appreciate it. All right, let's use this and let's help you move on your journey to success. Thanks, and remember, just take action. Success awaits those who persevere and remain steadfast despite the odds. Sow good seeds, do good deeds, and join me on the next episode of The Tony DUrso Show.